I'm now joined here in the studio by Lumkile Mondi, an economist, to try and make some sense of that story. Let me start by asking you this, Mr. Mondi. I mean, Fitch today went into detail explaining why they did what they did. Is that common?
That's very common because, Vuyo, a lot of our partners internationally, they know more than us. They can see danger coming from far because this economy has been built from the discovery of diamonds by foreign capital. So therefore, we shouldn't be surprised that they went into so much detail, that the ministers are firing, as well as some of the political stances, particularly coming from the president, around radical economic transformation, indicate a policy shift and a policy change, which they believe that will impact on state-owned enterprises governance, as well as the overall prudence that we've seen since 1996.
Well, among the few things the minister did after S&P downgraded us was to assure, the country, to assure business, to assure all stakeholders that, in fact, there won't be any policy change. This suggests that, certainly from where Fitch sits, they don't believe a word of what he's trying to say.
The minister doesn't have any credibility. He has a long way. He's got to slog. He's got to roll up his sleeve. He's got to show himself that he's different as a deployee by President Zuma. There has to be that tension because being a Minister of Finance brings certain responsibilities, particularly to the financial sector, because Vuyo is a critical sector that receives people's deposits and allocates capital to various areas that drive economic growth, which is critical for creation of jobs as well as reduction of poverty and inequality. He doesn't resonate not only with investors, but with a lot of us, because
he did meet with the banks the day before yesterday.
Yes.
And he assured them that there won't be any changes, that is going to continue essentially from where Pravin Gordhan left off. So who is Fitch to then disbelieve the people responsible for the banking sector in the country?
Vuyo, a lot of the bankers were in that meeting, listened and listened and listened. I don't think that they believe what the minister is saying.
So in spite of what they said?
Well, we had a very good role. The rand had strengthened about 1230. More importantly, we built a coalition of labor, government, as well as business around a growth story which we're selling. So once you've broken that trust, you need to work harder. We saw today people like Dennis George from Fedusa and many other stakeholders raising issues. So the issue around credibility is that it can't be earned by word of mouth. It is earned in action. So we need to see whether, what does it do with the Habib Bank? What does it do with those loans above 10 million at Eskom, which are under investigation? What does it do with the VR laser that's got a partnership with Daniel? So these issues, as South Africans, were very keen in as much as foreigners are, that is he just a Zuma man or is he a Minister of Finance which is concerned about the broader economy?
Well, speaking of Daniel and Eskom, as a possibility that the reshuffle can or may undermine, if not reverse, progress in state-owned enterprises governance.
Very importantly, Vuyo, South Africans are aware that at South African Airways, there is a chairman who's a deployee. I think the relationship between the Minister of Finance, the former Minister of Finance, and the chairman has been well documented. So we're watching to see whether, because the contract was for a year, I think she's supposed to go in September. So we're very keen to see whether the new board is going to be changed as well as the chairman will stay. So he has got so much, but also remember that the Minister of Finance, Mr. Kikaba, has got a very poor record at Eskom when he was the Minister of Public Enterprises, as well as Home Affairs, where we lost a huge number of potential tourists and the foreign earnings that could have earned had not introduced those visas. So he has to slog and really show us that he's the man to go to in terms of prudence, economic growth, and stability in our society.
Well, listening to the CEO of the JSE the other day, she was saying that, look, let's forget what is done is done. Let's begin to correct the wrongs. Where do we begin? Very briefly.
It's up to the president. The president has to reassure South Africans that he's a different man. He's not, he's lied under oath, He continues to cause havoc through this reshuffling. So we remain imprisoned by the president. So is the economy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lumkile Mondi, an economist, taking us through the implications, of course, of that decision by Fitch this afternoon to downgrade us following S&P.